In this video, I'll be sharing with you 100 things to help you understand Google's core updates. I'll show you how to tell if your traffic loss is due to a Google update, and more importantly, what it takes to recover, along with lots of examples. My name is Dr. Marie Haynes. My team and I at MHC have been learning everything we can about what Google values in terms of quality for many years, and translating that into advice for our clients and our newsletter subscribers. This video is going to go super fast. I'm probably packing way too much in, so you might need to pause to read some of the info on the slides. You can also find a written version of this along with all of the images included on our blog at mariehaynes.com. All right, here we go. Number 1, there are updates every day, but not all updates are core updates. Number 2, Google core updates happen a few times a year. Number 3, the point of a core update is for Google to get better at presenting relevant and authoritative content to searchers, not to penalize bad sites or sites that break Google's guidelines. And this is important. Number 4, the last core update was launched November 17th, 2021. Of course, Google would launch a core update right as my team and I were putting this video together. My team made this meme the day before the November core update launched. So the information in this video is not specific to just the November core update. But unless this update ends up being drastically different to the last few core updates that we've had, all of this video is still relevant and important to every site that wants to perform well on Google. Number 5, Google now tells us whenever they launch a core update. We tend to see 2 to 3 updates most years. A little trivia for number 6, what SEOs used to call phantom updates years ago were likely actually core updates. Glenn Gabe coined the phrase when we had big updates that we couldn't explain. Number 7, if you've been hit by a core update, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something wrong. Personally, I think that every site that's been hit by a core update has the potential to improve in some way. In some cases, though, this involves almost impossibly difficult changes, though, like improving the actual quality and helpfulness of content across maybe millions of pages. Number 8, a core update hit is not a penalty. If you have a manual action from Google, you'll see it in Google Search Console. Manual actions are not connected to core updates. If you don't have a manual action, but you're seeing a big drop in traffic, it can feel like a penalty, but this is not a penalty. It's an algorithmic filter or just an algorithmic change that's causing you to not perform as well as you used to. Which leads me to say that number 9, you can't file a reconsideration request if you've had an algorithmic drop. You used to be able to. And Google would reply telling you that your ranking changes were likely due to changes in their algorithm as opposed to a manual action on their part. All right, so let's talk about how to determine if your traffic loss is due to a Google core update. I'm going to go through a few things that you can check. Number 10. If you've been affected by a core update, you will often see changes that start within 24 hours of Google's announcement. Tip number 11 is about the summer of 2021 updates. Google said that some sites affected by the June core update would see changes reverse in July. This did happen for some sites, but it was not the norm. We saw plenty of examples of sites that improved or declined with both updates. Number 12, look at Google organic traffic in Google Analytics. Highlight the date of the core update that you're investigating. If you've been affected, there should be an obvious change in the trajectory of Google organic traffic to your site. You may need to wait a few days or a few weeks sometimes to see obvious drops though. Next, number 13, do Bing and Yahoo traffic change or other sources that are important for your website? Sometimes coincidences do happen, but usually if traffic's also down significantly in other search engines too, then you likely weren't affected by the Google core update. Number 14, Consider recent changes that you've made to the site. If you've just made significant site-wide changes, you should look to these first as a possible reason for your drop. These cases are hard though. This is an example that I've used for years to show how drops coincidental with Google updates are not always due to the update. In this case, the client launched a site on the same day as a Big Panda update. You never know what kind of dumb things a client will do to mess up their site. Well, I'm finally going to come clean on this. I've been talking about this case for years, and this was my site. I forgot the analytics on my site. And so everything that happens coincidental with the Google update is not necessarily caused by Google. Sometimes it's user error. Number 15, bot traffic has been brutal this year. If you see a spike in traffic that looks like this, it's probably bot traffic. There's ways to filter this out, and we've described a few in our newsletter, but doing it retroactively is difficult, and it's not always the same for every case. I usually try to exclude these dates when I'm doing my analysis, if that's possible. Okay, so you're convinced your losses are caused by a Google update. Now what do you do? Tip number 16, let me tell you that there is rarely a smoking gun. It does not happen often these days that we find a single fixable issue that results in a core update recovery. This is a site that we recovered in 2014 after cleaning out a bunch of thin content with a script, and it took just a few minutes to design and implement. And this resulted in a Big Panda recovery. It was a great case. Today, though, the clients of ours that improve with Google updates, they're ones that have spent a really long time working on and improving many aspects of quality. It's rare we find a smoking gun. It's important to determine where your losses are. If you can figure out what it is that Google's algorithms took issue with, then you're much closer to understanding what to improve upon. So let's look at some tips to help you determine where are the problems with your website. Number 18, is the drop site-wide? Compare dates in analytics to look at a month or so following the update and compare it to the time before. If every page on your site has seen a similar drop, then you could have a site-wide issue. But most core updates are not felt equally site-wide. Number 20, technical problems are probably not the cause of your drop. If you do have a drop that's reflected equally across most pages of your site, you could look to technical problems as a cause, but know that core update hits are not likely to be because of technical issues with your site. Number 21, look for trends across sections of your site. See if you can determine whether there's one part of your site that was affected. If so, this is where you need to focus your efforts. Number 22, look at the index coverage report in Google Search Console. If you're seeing lots of URLs of a certain type that you think should be indexed and Google has marked them as crawled, currently not indexed, sometimes this is a sign or maybe a clue that these pages are not the type of quality that Google wants to consistently show to users. We've had clients see nice improvements that we feel could be attributed to removing pages like this from Google's index, so that the vast majority of what Google sees for a site is their best content. Number 23, we're going to get to recovery advice soon, but I wanted to throw this in here because it's very important. In most cases, if you are going to recover, you're going to need to improve on many aspects of quality. All right. Here's some rapid fire tips that you can check in Search Console to help further narrow down where to focus your recovery efforts. Number 24, changes by device. If mobile drops were much more than desktop, then you should be looking at what kind of experience users have on mobile on your site versus competitors. At this stage, as recording this early in the days of the November core update, it looks like a lot more sites were affected on mobile than on desktop. So this could be a clue that you need to check what your pages look like on mobile as compared to your competitors that are now outranking you. Number 25, changes by location. This is not usually an issue with core updates, but worth checking. If one country or location's seen bigger changes, then you know which competitors and SERPs to analyze when you're answering the questions that Google tells us to answer. And I'm going to get to those soon because those, in my opinion, are the meat of this video. Number 26, is it seasonal? You can use Google Analytics or Search Console to determine whether a site or a page maybe always sees a seasonal drop at this time. It's possible that the drops that you're seeing are absolutely nothing to worry about. A few random tips here. Number 27, Google recently confirmed that image search can be affected by core updates too. And also, people also ask results. This is going to seem kind of random, but number 29, if you had losses in March of 2020, they were probably due to COVID and not due to a Google update. Many of the sites that we monitor had kind of some kind of a drop in search traffic that starts March 10th, 2020, except for some sites like this. This is one site that sells medical masks. And March 10th was the date on which much of the world realized that our lives were going to be drastically affected by this virus. So if your traffic drops around this time, there's a good chance that it's related to COVID, even though it looks like something that maybe happened in Google's algorithms. So now that you've figured out which parts of your site to work on, to know how to recover, we need to understand what core updates are. Core updates are an adjustment to how Google assesses content. Spam updates are meant to go after sites that break Google's guidelines. If you were hit by a core update, it's probably not because you're going against Google's guidelines. Number 31, disavowing links is likely not going to help you recover from a core update hit. There is some benefit for some sites when it comes to disavowing, but really only those that have been purposefully building links that break Google's guidelines on a massive scale. While we do recommend disavowing for some sites, it's not something that we feel can recover a site from a core update hit. Number 32, Google says the key to recovery is offering the best content you can. Offering the best content is up for interpretation. I mean, what does that even mean? I think often we can get hung up on only focusing on factors that we know can improve, that we can improve upon in measurable ways. Having good content, it's hard to measure, right? Well, it turns out that Google has given us specific guidelines to follow to improve quality. If you've had a site quality review from MHC, you'll know that many of our suggestions that we make are based on answering the questions in this Google blog post. So number 34, Google employees have told us repeatedly that the answers to recovery if you're hit by a core update are in this blog post. There are two schools of thought on this blog post. Many SEOs do not believe that the things that Google asks here are measurable by an algorithm, and that these are just general nice guidelines to follow, but not actually part of Google's search algorithms. I disagree with that, and I'll explain more on why I do think that sites that make changes to better answer these questions are the ones that are now coming out on the right side of Google updates. Number 35, this post lists questions that summarize much of Google's search quality rater guidelines. I still recommend reading the entire QRG. There's so much value in there. Almost every time I read it, I find something new that we can use to help improve the quality of our sites. Number 36, updates often improve Google's understanding of what it is that the user is trying to accomplish or learn. Their first goal is to truly understand what is the user's intent. I think this goes well beyond simple buckets like transactional intent, informational, or navigational intent. The algorithms are trying to determine what is it that the user really wants to know or wants to do. Language models like BERT help Google better understand what it is that the searcher wants. When Google introduced BERT, they told us it is really good at understanding the intent behind queries. And then once they understand what it is that the user wants, then they need to match it with relevant content. Updates improve Google's understanding of which content is relevant. Now, this next bit to me is kind of a big deal that I don't see a lot of people talking about in SEO just yet. Machine learning. Is Google using machine learning in their algorithms? Google tells us that they use interaction data to assess whether search results are relevant to queries. Now, we don't know whether this is actual data from searchers Or what we think is more likely, it could be the information from Google's quality raters as they perform their searches. Number 40, they transform that data into signals to help machine-learned systems better estimate relevance. We think it's possible that Google's using machine learning to determine many intangible aspects involved in ranking content. You need to watch this video called Trillions of Questions. I was blown away when I heard of the advances that Google's been making to make search better. When I heard this line, I did a double take. The raters are basically teaching our computers what's good and what's bad. If Google's using machine learning to determine the weights in their ranking systems, then it's possible that the days of known or suspected ranking factors, they may be over now. Google tells us that once they've identified user intent and which content is the most relevant fit, then they look next at signals to determine which content demonstrates EAT. Google systems identify signals to determine which content demonstrate EAT. I love talking about EAT. One of my team members, Jamie, made this for me, and it sparked off this internal debate about whether a hot dog is a sandwich or not. I keep forgetting which side I'm on because I feel like I could make an argument for each side. But if you ever want to get people talking in your office, ask this question. Number 44, there are so many things that you can do to improve EAT. You've likely heard that adding author bios can help improve EAT. But it's so much more. You absolutely should be working on improving your expertise, your authoritativeness, your trustworthiness, and how you show that to people on the web. In fact, number 45, Google says that assessing your own content in terms of EAT may help it rank better. Number 46, links from authoritative sites are a part of EAT, and they can help Google to trust your site because links are closely associated with authority. They're not the whole thing about authority, but very closely associated. PageRank and authority are closely connected. So does this mean that now all we should be doing is focusing on link building? I would say instead of link building, I like to call it mention building. We believe that Google is getting better at knowing which links they should count as trustworthy, authoritative recommendations and which ones are maybe just there for SEO purposes and can be ignored. Number 49, you can improve EAT by getting links or mentions from truly authoritative sources. This is not easy to do though. In most cases, if a link is easy for an SEO to get, especially in a repeatable way, it's not likely to be one that Google wants to count as an authoritative recommendation. We'll likely have more content out in the future about our thoughts on mention building. We don't offer it specifically at MHC, but if you do reach out to us, we have recommendations for companies and individuals as well that we think do good work in this area. Number 50, mentions might improve your entity associations. Which leads me to tip number 51. This is a topic that we're likely going to have future content on because I have a lot to learn on this subject, and I think it's very, very important. Number 51 is to learn more about entities and how Google uses them in search. If I get mentioned on, say, search engine land, this could potentially give Google's algorithms more evidence to say that, yes, I'm considered a trustworthy source of information in regards to SEO. The more this happens, the stronger the entity associations are between me and the topic of SEO. And I'm more likely to be seen as an authority in this area. Number 52, recommended reading. Bill Slawski on entity associations. If you want to learn more about entities and their associations, you can read this article by Bill Slawski. I'm going to say this again, tip number 53, there is way more to EAT than just links. Think of EAT like a measure of authenticity for your business. It's Google's way of determining whether you're genuinely the source that they should share with searchers. So anything that you can do to improve how you are perceived as a trustworthy authority online has the potential to help improve EAT. In the next bit, we're going to go through Google's questions they say to ask regarding core updates, and I'll give you some ideas on what types of improvements you can make based on these questions. Working on these will help you improve your EAT and also your content quality. Number 54, content fixes often don't scale easily. Many of the things that I'm going to suggest here can only be changed on a page-by-page basis. And that's bad news if you have a site that's seeing drops across thousands or even millions of pages. Number 55, but some changes do scale well, and they can be effective. Sometimes you can make changes to your template or design that make all pages across your site more usable. Okay, the questions. Let's look at these questions in Google's blog post. These are the ones that they tell us are the key to creating great content. For each of these questions, you should be looking at content of yours that declined with a core update and compare it to content that's now outranking you. Your goal is to find areas where you can improve. And it will often be easy to look at content that's outranking you and say, no, Google got it wrong. And I urge you to look at things critically and ask, is there somewhere where I could improve in these areas that Google talks about? Number 56, does your content provide original information, reporting, research, or analysis? If a reader was given the choice of reading your article as opposed to somebody else's, is yours clearly more valuable than any others out there? Would readers consistently choose to engage with yours rather than a competitor, especially an authoritative competitor? I'm going to give you a few ideas on how to create content that actually answers the questions that your customers and your searchers have. When my team and I do site quality reviews, we try to come up with loads of ideas like this for our clients because it's different for every single client. One thing you could do is to use surveys to determine what types of questions your audience has and then answer those questions better than anyone else can. You can find out what questions your audience has by asking your audience. Or you can mine social media for popular questions. Another thing you can do is talk to customer service. What questions are your customers asking? Knowing what questions to answer makes your content more helpful. A lot of people create content by looking at what content competitors have and then doing kind of the same. You want your readers to feel consistently that they get some kind of secret insight when they choose to engage with your content rather than your competitors. Number 60, are your pages substantial enough? Substantial, complete, comprehensive description of the topic. Now, number 61, more content is not always better though. Check the content that started outranking you. Does their page do a better job at quickly getting the searcher the information that they need for this particular query? Number 62, produce content that fully meets the needs of the searcher. This is a big deal. I'm trying to do this right now with this video that you're watching. Google's quality raters are taught that a page that fully meets a searcher's needs is one in which almost all users would be completely satisfied, and they would not need additional results to fully satisfy their intent. That's a big task. By the way, if you have a question about core updates that I did not cover in this video, please do leave a comment and myself or my team can answer it. That way, that'll help make this piece of content even more helpful to other people who have that question. Number 63, don't just report on the facts. So many people are producing content that answers what is X when there are already many articles that answer that question. You want your readers to consistently say, oh, this is good. I didn't know that. You need to add value beyond just reporting on the facts if you want to rank amongst authoritative sites that are also publishing just the facts. Number 64, are you reporting on the news or just simply rewriting the news? Again, if you're an authority, you can often get away with just reporting on facts. If you're not, though, you need to find ways to add value and add originality to convince people to read your stuff. Number 65, do your competitors make better use of headings? Headings help Google better understand how to frame your content. I think there's possibly a more important reason to have good headings, though. They guide readers to find the helpful parts of your content more quickly. Number 66, if a user skimmed headings, would they find your page more helpful than your competitors? You can use a Chrome extension like Detailed to see quickly what readers who skim headings would see on your page. Can they quickly understand that their answer is there on your page? It's really important to understand how searchers skim. People do not read content on the web word by word anymore. They skim headings, highlighted words, and bulleted lists, which doesn't mean that now we all need to start adding bulleted lists on every page. What you should be doing is look critically at the pages that Google elevated above you with a core update. If they use a bulleted list, does that help the searcher skim better and help them find their answer more quickly? Can you do a better job in some way? It caused quite a stir recently when John Mueller said very adamantly that bold text can help improve your SEO. This is nothing new. This is something that people have known for quite some time. We've been talking about this for a long time. I think, though, that good use of bolding helps searchers skim your content more efficiently. Number 69, avoid clickbaity titles. Miley Cyrus is not dead. If your titles and headings are tricking users, Google doesn't like that. Searchers don't like that either. Now, here's a hard question to ask yourself. Number 70, is your content so good that people truly want to share it? Google says good content is the kind that people want to bookmark or share. The type of content that people like to share really is the type of content that users find truly helpful. Number 71, look at your referrals. You can look at analytics data to determine which pieces of content got organic shares. Create more stuff like that, and it'll probably rank well. Figure out what it is that people found helpful in that content. The next tip is Sally. I snuck this in because she's cute. My team felt I was robbing you of a tip, though, so don't worry. I made it number 71.5. Sally's tip is to take time and relax every now and then. Number 72, cite your references. Citing references, citing good sources, helps your readers to trust your information. Number 73, cite reputable sources of information. If one site's content's based on references to blogging sites, and another one is referencing authoritative sites and scientific articles, which article do you think readers are going to consider more credible? It's fine to list citations at the end of an article, but tip number 74, we actually prefer to use inline citations wherever possible. Number 75, demonstrate your expertise. You want your readers to know that you are qualified to teach them on this subject. Number 76, expertise required will vary depending on the query. Sometimes the best answer is always going to be from a qualified professional, but not always. If you're not sure if expertise is an issue, then you need to check who's outranking you, especially following a Google update. If all of the sites that are outranking you are written by highly qualified doctors, for example, then you likely need a qualified doctor to write or at least fact check all of your content if you want to even have a chance at ranking amongst these authoritative sites. Number 78, link to author pages that brag about your author's qualifications. You can link to pages, or you can do this on the article page itself. The point is to make sure that your readers can learn more about your authors and their qualifications, should they want to. Number 79, about pages should give loads of information about your company and your team. If you're American, feel free to make fun of me right now. Apparently, about is very Canadian. Number 80, the Search Quality Rater Guidelines give us even more information on what kind of information users expect to be able to find on your website. Okay, we're almost there. Number 81, reputation matters. Google does not want to recommend sites that consistently disappoint and upset and annoy searchers. Number 82, respond to reviews. We don't know whether Google uses sentiment of reviews in their algorithms, but they might. They have patents showing that they can. Even if they don't, though, responding to reviews shows potential customers that you're working on improving issues that might have been a problem in the past. Number 83, encourage happy customers to leave good reviews to show that you're fixing things. Number 84, deal with business issues. This can go well beyond the scope of what an SEO can do sometimes. If your business is consistently making people angry online, Google is not going to want to recommend it. Number 85, do more public relations. PR is not link building. It's improving the public's recognition of your business, your website, your authors even. Mention building, as I like to call it, getting links and mentions in authoritative places, like I mentioned before when we're talking about entity associations, is one way to be recognized more and more as an authority in your space. Number 86, see if you can get a Wikipedia page. Now, I'm not saying that getting a Wikipedia page will automatically boost your rankings or is a direct ranking factor in any way. But if you're notable enough to have a Wikipedia page, you should probably try and get one. It turns out that Wikipedia's criteria for notability are very similar to EAT. Doing the work to get included in Wikipedia should translate to great EAT improvements. Number 88, spelling, grammar, layout issues, they're all important. Number 89, you can use Screaming Frog to help find spelling and grammar issues in bulk. Number 90, focus on quality rather than quantity. Years ago, it was common SEO advice to publish some kind of content, even if mediocre, every day. The more the better. We are seeing lots of sites come to us recently with traffic drops, and we're finding thousands, sometimes millions of pages of content that's just okay. Mediocre content that's no better than anybody else's. Now, in the past, you could build links to this type of content and even to the site itself. And these types of sites, this type of content could start to perform really well. And this is not so much the case anymore now. As Google figures out what content really is more helpful, it gets harder and harder to rank mediocre content by link building. Number 91, are your ads annoying users? Many of you are going to want specific guidelines here on how many ads are too many ads. I believe that if your ads are consistently annoying users, this could be one of those hard to measure machine learned weights that are in the ranking system. It could be different for every niche, every vertical, every type of website. Number 92, what users see on mobile is very important. When you're comparing yourself against competitors, you need to look at who offers a better mobile experience. User testing with actually potentially frustrated users can be really, really helpful here. Ultimately, though, recovery comes down to being able to add substantial value. Google may not have it perfect in every case, but more and more what we're seeing are sites that have content that is as helpful as possible are the ones that are winning with Google Core Updates. Good SEO can only take a site so far. Good content, which is probably a part of good SEO as well, is what Google tells us to focus on. Number 94. As I was writing this content that I'm sharing with you right now, I came across this tweet thread by Rich Tatum. It's too long to share in its entirety, but I believe that he's captured in this thread what it takes to produce content that truly is what users want and what Google wants to show them. I've linked to it in the description. This is deep, profound stuff and not simple instructions you can throw to a copywriter. But if you can figure out how to create content in this way, I believe that you'll do really well with Google Updates. So now let's get to the exciting part, recovery. If you've worked on improving the things that I've spoken about so far, what can you expect to see? First off, it is possible to recover after a core update hit. You likely won't recover until the next core update or even the following one sometimes. Number 97, recoveries tend to start usually within 24 hours of a core update being announced, but not always. Some of them are different. Here's a client of ours that did really, really well. Now, look at this site. This site improved quality by doing a bunch of the things that we've mentioned in this video so far. They added references where possible. They beefed up their author profiles. They did a bunch of stuff to improve their EAT, and this likely contributed to their gains. However, when you look at the big picture, this isn't anywhere close to a recovery. They worked on improving EAT, but there were parts of their content quality that I don't think are possible to completely improve. And this is because number 98, for some sites, full recovery is not possible. This particular site didn't make a full recovery because much of its focus is to speak against traditional medicine, which is something that the quality raters are told is a sign of low quality. Number 99, great recoveries can happen for sites that work really hard to improve quality. The recovery that you see is usually a bit by bit Google discovering that your content is more helpful and more relevant than your competitors. We'll often see a steady increase for a while until things eventually level out at a higher level. And tip number 100 is the most useful tip I can give you. It's to subscribe to Search News You Can Use. There are 12 of us at MHC, and every day all of us are learning all we can about what it is that Google values and rewards. We put out pretty much everything we learn in the newsletter. There's two versions. One is free. The other one is the best stuff we save for our premium version, which is $18 a month. For that, every week you get to read our insight based on many years of helping our clients improve and the knowledge that we've curated from around the web. If you've been negatively affected by a Google Core update, most sites can recover, and in some cases do even better than they did before the hit. But it takes a lot of work to produce high-quality websites that searchers truly do recognize as helpful. I hope you've enjoyed this type of content. This is something new for us and for me, and I wish you the best of luck with your rankings.